In regards to planning and programming, the essential factors I would consider and include are as follows. Language items such as MCTs, lexical items which are vocabulary associated with particular MCTs, authentic text which will be in the target language and from the target language country, and which also includes social-linguistic and social-cultural information. Identification of language learning skills and strategies to be used by the learners, and I have a strong preference for the ease model. By selecting features of form that emerge through the text and which will serve as a focus for learning and teaching of the system of the target language, multi-level task, and a few principles of instructed language learning, which are placing emphasis on firstly, meaning making, such as MFIs, secondly, on form by means of conscious raising task, developing the implicit and explicit knowledge of the target language, extensive target language input, creating opportunities for output and for learners to interact in the target language. Going through Sarah Fuller's program, I strongly like her approach to the planning of her program. I can see that she covered all the essential factors mentioned in my introduction, and every week the learner is likely to progress beyond their current stage of proficiency as the content of the lesson accommodates for cumulative learning. Also, the learners are most likely to carry out the task on their own, thus being autonomous and self-directed in their learning. All the outcomes as per the curriculum framework have been included, and by means of the task and assessment, they will be achieved quite easily. I can also see the importance of examining free as well as controlled production, as in that way the learner's proficiency and linguistic accuracy of the target language can be observed and assessed. Initially, I thought including all the essential factors plus the outcomes would not be possible, but looking at Fuller's program, I can now say that it is possible over a certain period of time though. The German program is very much similar to Fuller's program, and it includes all the essential factors I mentioned in my introduction. However, when I was going through the list of language and lexical items, I initially thought that it was quite an extensive list. But then the learners have a good command of the target language, and I think they will be able to manage that amount of information, and also the background speaker may feel challenged by the task and not think that it is too easy for him. I very much liked the fact that in this case, learners are encouraged to reflect on their learning, as this will provide essential feedback to themselves and the teacher as well. As for the Japanese lesson plan, I could not quite link my list of essential factors to the lesson, as I believe that much was not included in there, and also this activity does not allow the learners to be autonomous and self-directed, as the teacher will need to intervene quite a lot so that the learners can understand what's expected of them and how to get on with the task. I doubt if the learners would understand the target language input from the teacher, as even though they are quite familiar with the topic, that does not necessarily mean they will understand the input. I would have included the MCTs, lexical items associated with the MCTs, MFIs in the target language, so that the use of the target language is maximized in the classroom, and also making sure that the learners understand what they mean so that they would use it in the right context. Having the learners practice the key items by means of role play first would have been beneficial before they actually get to write them, as I personally believe that would assist in a more effective way of language learning. There was no activities included that would support the identification of form though. As for the Chinese lesson plan, it is not very much detailed. Assuming that the sheet containing the self-help phrases and lexical items has been developed as per the learner's level of proficiency, the learners should be able to carry out the task on their own. Also, by using one of the more advanced students to demonstrate an example is wise in the sense that it is not a teacher-directed environment. As for the Neves sample, it contains all the essential factors mentioned in my introduction, except that the list of lexical items is way too long, and considering it is a group of beginners, I don't think it's appropriate to use such a long list. I would rather use a much shorter list so that the learners can use it with the relevant MCTs, thus being able to use the target language more confidently and proficiently. This made me think about the level at which the students are, and also trying to find the right balance as in how much exposure they should have to the target language and what constitutes a fair amount of exposure so that the learners are advancing in their learning and that their learning is not impeded. I am in favor of the language learning strategies adopted in this case, which relate to the EASE model, and the assessment strategies which allow the learners to educate themselves and monitor their own progress. After going through all the samples, I'm strongly in favor of Fuller's and the German sample, as they are very detailed and contain all the essential factors I would include in my planning and programming, plus anyone can easily do the lesson with the students. And it also allows the students to complete the activities on their own without much teacher's intervention.